KTM 790 Duke. It's been a big disappointment for those of us who've been born, brought up on KTMs and know that they stand for incredible value and the ones that set the benchmark when it comes to performance. For a lot less, you could get a motorcycle that has 4 cylinders. For a lot less, you could get a motorcycle that has more horsepower. And for a lot less, you could get a motorcycle that looks a lot like this. But judging a book by its cover is pretty much as judging a motorcycle by its spec sheet. Let's not make that mistake, shall we? Yes, KTM has spoiled us, and this 790 is putting people off with its price. But it is trying to sweet talk you. What I've got to say I absolutely love is the exhaust note on this motorcycle. Even at low speeds, like just running around here, it sounds so nice and characterful. And that's only one part about this engine. It sounds like a V-twin, and that's because of its 245-degree firing order. Well, obviously it's not going to have that whee of an inline 4 because it is a parallel twin, right? At 30 kilometers an hour, sitting in 4th or 5th gear might not be as smooth like with the triples and 4s. But it's got 2 counterbalancers to keep it smooth, and it really does feel smooth, really no vibrations. And when you take it out on the track, 105 horsepower doesn't sound like much, but trust me, the way the power delivery is, you can ride this motorcycle through the corners, on the straights, use all the horses that it has confidently. It feels like it has the grunt in the mid-range at low revs to drive you out of corners without putting in too much effort. And that is the beauty of this motorcycle. It just feels so easy and communicative while riding. That's no surprise. After all, its 87 Newton meters of torque is more than most of its competition. And the smooth throttle lets you pour it all out beautifully. You can customize how this motorcycle feels using the electronics because you've got, well, 9 levels of traction control. You've got 4 riding modes, which is street, rain, sport, and track. And on track, you could even switch off traction control. You can switch off ABS. You can basically set it to supermoto mode. So yeah, you can customize it, and the throttle response changes. And this engine, which already is so usable, well, it can feel softer if you wanted to for everyday use, or you can make it feel a little bit more grunty and a little bit more aggressive for track use. Sadly, we couldn't test the track mode or the launch control as these are activated after the first service. But it was fast. The 790 hit and indicated 225 kilometers an hour without making a fuss, and it was willing to go further. The only thing is, being a parallel twin, it doesn't rev as high as the inline 4s or the triples that are its competition. So revs cut out at about 10k. So in the corners, while you're working through the sweepers, you will have to work the gearbox a bit more. But that really isn't a bad thing because the gearbox works well. You've got an up and down quick shifter as standard. And while it isn't the smoothest quick shifter around at low speeds, when you're going fast, it does work well. Although you have to be a little careful because that is pretty sensitive to your touch. And when you look at the wheelbase, you'll think this is so long, and Bajaj's test track here, which is so tight, is not a great combination, right? But then you look at the geometry for the steering. It's got 24 degrees of rake, 98 millimeters of trail, which is really tight and sharp. And you know what? This motorcycle is called the Scalpel, and it certainly feels that way out on the track. It's precise, it's light. It makes me want to be a poet to talk about it in a more fitting manner. But what I can tell you is, not only is the motorcycle sharp, it makes the rider feel sharp, like an expert. You can adjust your lines, you can commit to corners, it feels good doing just about everything, whether it's tight corners or the fast sweepers. And well, those Maxxis Super Max tires, well, we haven't used these before, but they have performed really well. And where they kind of started slipping up, well, the traction control stepped in to help us out. Then there is cornering ABS, wheelie control and a steering damper as standard, which all help to make things cleaner still. So if you want to push hard, by all means, go ahead. And the good thing is that these brakes that we have here, Zhejiang's, branded as KTM's, provide strong bite. And in terms of feel, these motorcycles had barely been run, so the feel from the brakes was still evolving. Nonetheless, I don't think these are anything I would complain about, albeit when compared to top flight brakes like Brembo's, M50's, well, those have a little bit sharper feel at the start, which was a bit missing here. But those are offered on the Street Triple RS, which costs over 2 lakh rupees more. And yes, in comparison to the RS, the suspension hardware on the 790 is a bit simple. The front is non-adjustable, neither is the rear, and it's not a linked monoshock either. So when you're out on the track and really gunning for it, over bumps you do feel a little bit of an up and down motion, which, well, on a more sophisticated suspension setup you could tune out. But nonetheless, when you're pushing it hard, this isn't something that stops you from going that little bit further. It's just something you notice. Even with this hardware, the 790 Duke's dynamics are so polished that it will make more expensive competition start to sweat. Yeah, this is the scalpel, no doubt, and it makes you feel like a surgeon. No, a neurosurgeon. But what would it be like to live with? In terms of dry weight, this is 3 kilos heavier than the Street Triple. But in reality, this motorcycle just feels so light. And when you hop onto it, the weight disappears even further. It feels like a featherweight. At 825mm, the seat height is the tallest in this class. But to put that in perspective, it's on par with the 390 Duke. So if you've ridden that, this should not be an issue. 5 feet 6 inch riders like me will learn to live with it quickly. And then there is the long seat. And given the kind of space on offer here, this will also be more comfortable for taller passengers. You do have the room, the stretch to the bars, to the pegs, everything is that much nicer. And if you're talking about the ergos, one thing that you will have to train your mind for is how slim this motorcycle is. More than a couple of times, I kind of missed the levers because I was expecting everything to be a bit wider. And what about the elephant in the room? The most important question, is that headlight the same as the 390 Duke? Well, the surround isn't, but the actual element inside the lighting element, that's the same as the 2019 KTM 390 Duke, which apparently has been upgraded to provide better illumination. And the forks, 43mm upside down WPs. Yeah, basically the same construction, but the internals are obviously different to deal with this motorcycle, which is a bit heavier and has a lot more performance on tap. You might look at this and say, where's that cool premium trellis frame that we're used to? Well, that's because this frame now is made from chrome molybdenum, which is lighter, stiffer. It's just a tubular unit, but it does the job along with using the engine as a stressed member. And that's not all. You do get a digital display here on the 790, but it is smaller than the one on the 390. And it's missing Bluetooth connectivity as standard. If you want more details on this display, PD's got you the details for that. Check out the link for that video in the description. Remember, its rivals don't offer anything like this, and it's super easy to use even on the go. Very impressive. What you will be impressed with straight away though is the quality. This feels like a premium motorcycle, definitely a step up from all the other KTMs that we've had in India yet. We could ooh and ah about the quality of the palm grips and all the levers. Even the heel plate, it looks delicate, but this cast alloy unit is sturdy. And well, there are some things that could have been a bit better, like these decals on the tank extensions and for the surround here for the air intake. And yeah, that is the air intake over there on both the sides. These are cast into the alloy subframe, functional and gorgeous, which is just like the long swing arm, the tapered bars and the sharply sculpted tank, which is a bit small. And well, that's that. So, if you look past the haze of cylinders and horsepower and look for a riding experience that will thrill you, there you will find KTM 790 Duke just shines. So, KTM 790 Duke, it is going to disappoint everyone who chooses to judge it just on the basis of its specs. Because yeah, it doesn't have 2 extra cylinders, yeah, it doesn't have the class-topping performance in terms of horsepower, but once you get onto this motorcycle, you will not forget it. Its agility, its lightness, its usability, its performance, all of it will talk to you in spades. It'll be something you can't forget. Its usability will impress you every single day, whether it's for riding in the city, for doing long distance, you've got enough room, and even for a pillion. And after that, if you decide to take it on a track, well, it will surprise you there as well. In fact, it won't just surprise you, it will shock you. So if you're stuck at the KTM 790's price tag, don't be, because this might be all the motorcycle you'll ever need.